Hi everyone, if you are familiar with my channel, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. I am a therapist and I get into a lot of relationship topics and sex topics, trauma, betrayal, all of that stuff kind of is what I do a lot of. So today I want to get into how we kind of can tell the difference between if somebody is just losing interest and doesn't want to be with us anymore, but they're not saying anything, they're just pulling away. How can we tell the difference between that and maybe something else is going on and they're still interested, but they're pulling away or they seem distant for another reason, right? So let's jump into all of that and see if I can help ease some of the questions and the kind of anxiety that comes with not knowing. So how can you tell if somebody is losing interest? When I was thinking about this, I kind of put things that I would want us to consider and think through in two different categories. So the one category would be looking at all the facts and what is going on and trying to do that in an objective manner. And this may be hard to do, and that's why I think it's important to talk about, because what we usually do is we react a bit more emotionally, we maybe even skew things or make things bigger in our head. And there's a lot of reasons for why we do that, but we usually do that when we're feeling this way, when we're feeling like that anxiety of maybe they want to leave or they're not happy anymore or they're not saying anything but something's going on. We tend to go into the anxious place. So I want you to try to step back and look at things objectively and maybe even try to talk to somebody that's more of a professional or not involved in your life with this, because when we talk to our friends about it, we often get what we want to hear, or we get kind of the hyped up responses, right? Like we all have those friends that we'll go to if we want them to be like, what? I bet he's doing this, like we need to do this, right? So we want to talk to somebody and be able to kind of have a sounding board that can help us get down to the real issues and the real facts of what's going on. And like I said, I put these in two categories. So the first category I want to look at is sort of the facts of the situation. And then the next one is more what's going on with you maybe, and what could be coming up from your insecurities or your questions or your sort of emotions. So if we try to look at this more objectively, we want to look at actual facts. So someone taking a little bit longer to respond doesn't actually mean anything, right? It can feel really bad and feel like something's wrong, especially if there's somebody who usually responds right away, or if we're feeling extra emotional, or maybe we had like an argument with them and then they take a while to respond back. Sometimes we can get really reactive to that, but that doesn't actually mean like this equals this. There's so many other factors that could be going into that. It could mean something if that's happening all the time, right? If all of a sudden they're just not responsive and that's a consistent thing and you can't really get timely responses from them. And maybe it's a really long time, like it's days when it usually is minutes, right? Those bigger things could mean something, but I usually see that we're a bit more reactive and sensitive to that. So let's look at what is actually going on. Is there actually any real facts here in sort of backing up my feeling like maybe they're losing interest? And if we look at this and we're like, okay, well, he has been responding a little bit later, or he has seemed a little more distant, or he has been a little shorter with me, or he hasn't been making it as much time. If we look at those things, we can also say, okay, well, is there anything else going on that could be that, right? It's not always about us. It could be so many other things. There could be something going on in their lives. They could be stressed. They could be dealing with other things, right? It's not necessarily you. So if we try to step back and look at that and say, okay, well, I know this is happening and this is stressful and this is something that they're working through and they have a lot on their plate. So maybe it's not, it's not actually me. And maybe I can just be a little bit more of a supportive person when they're ready to share that or when they want to share that. So looking at that can help. And it can kind of help you decipher, okay, maybe there is something going on, or maybe like I'm just feeling a bit sensitive about it, right? And that can be still hard to figure out, but it helps to work through it and talk through it, especially with somebody who isn't going to be really reactive in that. Someone who will just kind of help you talk through it and get some of your fears out. And that's the next piece of this that I think is really big, because often these questions and fears and anxieties come from our stuff, right? That could be happening with your partner, and it could not be happening at all, but it often stems from our past, our trauma, our dating history, our fear of loss, our anxieties, all of that stuff, right? It comes more from us. So am I insecure in this? Do I feel comfortable in this relationship? Am I happy? Like, those are all questions that I would ask you and have you sort of think through and just kind of sit with, because when some of this stuff comes up, it comes from our stuff and our issues, whether or not it's actually happening in real life or not, right? Because sometimes we can sort of create it because we have a fear of it, and sometimes we're just more sensitive to it, or sometimes we do sense it because it is happening, and we just have that sort of intuition thing. So that obviously could be a part of this too. But look at what your fears are. Do you have a fear of them leaving? Do you have a fear that they don't like you as much as you like them? Do you have like those thoughts, maybe those negative thoughts come up? And let's look at those. Let's look at where those come from. It could be that those are coming from this relationship and this person not treating you the way that you want to and deserve to be treated, and not giving you enough, right? And not giving you that sort of affirmation that things are okay. So that anxiety definitely is higher when we look at people who are dating someone who's more narcissist or more kind of full of themselves and not able to give as much. So that could be happening there. It also could be that you need to work on some of your stuff, that some of your insecurities are coming up, and it's worth looking at and looking at your past and looking at where those came from and trying to work through that so you become more secure in yourself. And if you become more secure in yourself, regardless of what's happening with them, you'll be able to handle that better. So that's always why I plug that. Because regardless of what they choose, if they do want to leave or they do want to stay or they do want to work through it, regardless of what happens there, you get to choose what's best for you, and you get to decide what's best for you, and you get to act consciously out of that. Not in a reactive way, not in a way that you put up with less than you deserve or any of that, right? That it helps us ground back into ourselves so we can make better decisions for us. So it's kind of a lot of questions and points that I think are good to work through. And sometimes it's nice to write out a bunch of things or write responses to some of these questions. I find that helpful personally, and some of my clients find it helpful. So I send like writing prompts or questions for them to respond to and process through. And some people like to talk it out more verbally. So you can kind of look at which one you fall into and what would help you kind of talk through it and process it more. And then you can highlight things that you want to keep working on for the future. Like, I do want to work on this fear, or I do want to work on this anxiety or this insecurity for the future. And I also maybe want to identify what the relationship that I want really looks like and what my expectations are for this person and how I communicate that to this person. Because all of those are big and important and are more long-term goals. So once we do all this and we evaluate all this stuff, we need to communicate in some way to the person. So we need to talk to them and figure out what's going on and do that in a way that's not attacking or, like too demanding, but also in a way that is direct and gets what we need. So we don't want to take it too aggressively or too passively. We want to open the conversation to have that conversation. And if you do that and you really work on that, which is hard for some people, I talk through this with clients a lot because it's really hard to open up that sort of communication that opens up real sharing, right, on both sides. So if we do that and we really work on that and we still keep getting met with negativity, or they don't have the time or the energy to even want to talk about any of that, then that probably is a sign that things aren't going that well, because you need to be with somebody, and you should, and you deserve to be with somebody who can have those conversations with you. And there could be other things going on. Maybe they're not ready for that in the moment, or maybe they're triggered, or all of that stuff could be at play. So it's not something that it doesn't work well and you run, but it is something to look at and to try to work on, and to see if you can get them on board to work with you to have those conversations, because those are crucial conversations to have, because we can talk about this all day long, but you're not going to get anywhere until you go back to them and work through it a bit. But we have to decide what's the best way to do that for you and for them, for the relationship, and also for the stage of the relationship. Because if it's really far into a relationship, then this should be something that you can bring up more candidly and easily, hopefully, not always, but ideally. But if it's early in the relationship, then you may feel a bit more insecure about bringing things up. So we almost have to have a little more tact and figure out how exactly we want to bring it up, because a lot of people have fears of being the person that brings too much to the table too early. But we still want to bring it up in some way. If we're feeling this and it's continuous and it's something's going on, it's our needs aren't being met, our expectations aren't being met, or something is going on, we want to address it, right? So that is all of my thoughts on that. If you want more help with this, if you want help talking through it, let me know. If you want help with, coming up with questions, I can always help with that too. Come up with some questions for you to process through your situation a little bit better, and look at all of these sort of moving parts. I should do an article on this too, because I feel like there's a lot of pieces that we should work through, as far as our stuff and communication and evaluating where the relationship is at and looking at facts, right? So maybe I'll put something together that way, like an article or worksheet or something. So that is, I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget. But as always, guys, if you have any questions or comments or anything, you can comment below, or you can reach out to me on my website. You can submit a question to me on my website, or you can just contact me, and I will get back to you and help as much as I can. Right, see ya. I'm so awkward at the end of videos, right? Like, I don't know how to end a video. I need to work on how to end videos. So now we'll be ending it awkwardly.